Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm once again joined by Jim Simonetti, where we'll be speaking to Smarticus Osadolor and John Joyce. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll be talking about Scottish football, but this is the nitty-gritty of Scottish football. This is often the level of Scottish football that Scottish football fans don't often hear about. We'll be talking to Smart about a career that's taken you quite a few clubs, Smart, but you've also got a connection to the Jimmy Johnstone Academy.
Yes, indeed. Let's
go back to your introduction to football in terms of professional football. You were signed up by Partick Thistle at age 18, or you went to Partick Thistle. Talk to us about your experience there.
The Partick Thistle incident is actually quite funny because at the time I stayed at Postle Park, and I knew they train at Fair Hill, but again I didn't really know any of the coaches or any of the players. So one day I decided to just go there with my boots, and I remember I was wearing some shorts, some flowery shorts, and I was sitting there by the side and watching them train, and then I looked at the guy who looked to be like the head coach, and I just walked up to him and I asked him, "Is it okay if I join in?" And then he looked at me, looked at all the boys, looked at the other coach, and then says, "Yeah, that's fine. You can join in." And then after that, I joined in training with them. And then after the training session, he pulled me to one side. He was like, "Oh yeah, I thought you done really well. You can come back. You can come back next week. We train on Monday, Wednesdays. But if you ever wear those shorts again, you would never be allowed to train with us." And then after that, I signed a contract with them.
You chanced your mitt?
Just chanced it because I knew they trained there. I've been there before, and I can see them training. And then I thought, okay, you know what? The worst that can happen is no, and then you can just go about your business. So took my boots, went there. I knew they started at about 7 o'clock. Went there a bit early, and then as training started, I just creeped over, and just asked him, "Is it okay to join in?" And then luckily he said yes, and then since then, that was it really.
I'm impressed. John Joyce, from a coach's perspective, if a boy came up and tried that, would you give him a chance?
We have done. We've done it on a few occasions because we've no got the finances that other teams have got. So it's a case of sometimes you just need to see what's there, and if somebody's brave enough to ask you, then you've got to say, well, good on you, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
See, the thing, Smart, you're at Partick Thistle. What kind of players were you playing alongside? Was there any guys that will know that maybe went on to the first team?
Yeah, there's one specifically I would always remember, Stuart Bannigan. So I played in the same age group as them, and at the time it was Stuart Bannigan, Kyle Lockhead, and a few other boys that I can't quite remember. But Stuart Bannigan, I would always look at him, and every time you just couldn't get the ball off him. He would twist and turn and twist and turn and twist and turn. So I just want to see what he does with the ball, and I'll try and copy some of the things he does, because at the time I was just still learning things like you need to take 2 touch and you need to open up your body and all of these phrases, because again, this was all new to me. And then at the time he was out the team because I think he was injured, and when I came in, I was playing in his position, and a lot of the boys at the time, they were still training with the first team during the day, and then at night would train with the under 19s. So after my first game, ended up getting a call up to come play with the reserves. Played with the reserves. We played against Queen's Park. Done quite well. Played 25 minutes. Done quite well. And I felt, actually, you know what, Smart, you've just came out of nowhere. Now you've played for Partick Thistle Reserve. A few weeks later, Stuart Bannigan becomes fit. He gets his position back in the team. I get left out, and then I was still training with the boys, but I just couldn't get back into the team. And then to see now that he's still playing for Partick Thistle to this day. Anytime I see him, sometimes I'll just say hi to him and whatnot. But then to think he's still playing for Partick Thistle and now the captain just shows how good he was.
Now, at that age group, that would be the normal progression, John, with regards to a young player signing for a team and then progressing. But your progression was a wee bit different. You then took a step back into boys' club football before you were able to progress. So could you talk us through what happened after your Partick Thistle experience?
So after Partick Thistle, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went back to boys' club, started playing for Broomhouse under 21. And then I was there for a few games. But again, I wasn't really enjoying it because the standard, once you've been at like a pro youth team and you see what the standard is like, and no offense to boys club, and then you go back to boys club, the standard is hard to get motivated to push and push and push. So then I thought, okay, I'll try and go play juniors. So at the age of 19, I went to Irving Vicks. Again, the manager who took me there started the season all right, but then midway through got the sack, unfortunately speaking. And then after that, a new manager came in, and then ended up leaving. And again, travelling from Postle Park all the way to Irvine became quite tough, taking a bus, train bus, just to try and get back home. Leave Glasgow at like 5 o'clock, don't get back home until about 10, 11, and then you've got college or whatnot the next morning. And then after that, left them, went to St Ant's for a bit. Didn't really get to play much because, again, I wasn't tall enough to win headers, and that was the kind of bit that I was baffled, because I'm like, well, I don't need to win headers. If you just pass the ball to my feet, I'll be fine. And I was like, nah, you need to win headers if you're playing up front. So I was like, all right, okay. So I got loaned out to Stonehouse Violet, another junior team, and then they folded. And then after that, I decided, I don't want to play junior football anymore. And then that's when I first came across Jimmy Johnstone. And then I was 19 going 20 when I first came across the Jimmy Johnstone, and it's fantastic. I was playing for the senior team, and I was learning. I think I was learning a lot, that the things I didn't know. I was playing up front. I was learning so much. And for me, it didn't make sense going to play junior football or boys clubs or amateur football, because even though I was 19, I was playing in a amateur league where most of the time I was the youngest on the pitch, because I was playing with men. So it was good. So that's when I really started to understand things about the game, like, well, body shape, taking 2 touch, don't run in a straight line, and just the ins and outs of the game. Jim,
I'll ask you to come in here and just explain to us about the senior side at the Jimmy Johnstone Academy at that stage, but also what was your first impressions when you met Smart for the first time?
Well, first of all, the senior team's got to be credited to a guy called Alan Sharp. Sharpie wanted to come along and have older players and senior players playing, and that went very well in the time that Sharpie was here, before he progressed up to become a youth coach up at Rangers Football Club. But his time here was fantastic. And Kenny as well, he used to go along to the senior games, and Jerry Bronski, and we seen Smart playing, and we thought, what a speed, maybe not the best of technique at that particular time, but his attitude was fantastic, and how he wanted to win and how he wanted to progress as a young senior player.
And what about some of the names that have been mentioned? How influential were they to you?
Yeah, I think Sharpie, I would always remember, because he pushed me, and I think at the time, I'll probably say I didn't see it, but looking back, when I came back from America and looking back, I think I phoned him so many times just to say, listen, thank you so much, because just pushing me to do better every time, because there was games where, for talking sake, we would win 12-0 and I've scored 6 goals, and they'll still be at me saying, oh, you could have done this, you could have done this. And that time you're like, well, I've just scored 6. And there was Sharpie, Graham Diamond, Gary Doctor, they all played in the team as well, and they've been about in the game for such a long time, and they would always try and give me advice and just try and help me. And I think most importantly, just fill me with confidence, just to tell me, yes, you're really good. But at the same time, when I got too big for my boots, they would bring me back quickly and be like, well, remember, there's still a long way to go. So I think looking back, I can't thank them enough for the way they just gave me so much confidence.
So John Joyce, talking about Smart, and obviously you have coached for many years. What was your first impressions of this young man?
Similar, bags of pace, bags of enthusiasm, made defenders work. Sometimes final product wasn't always there. Maybe at that point made the wrong decision, but that came about by learning a wee bit later on as you go there. And still, probably to this day, he maybe still make the wrong decision at times. But again, that's sometimes down to pressure coming from the manager, asking them to do a wee bit more, and they're thinking, oh well, I need to keep doing everything rather than I've got another 10 teammates there. But that was my first impression. That's my last impression.
Is he good for the dressing room?
Great
Enthusiasm.
Great,
yeah,
absolutely fantastic in the dressing room. Blended in with everybody, regardless of who we were, and that's the kind of dressing room we had, and he was part of that.
Smart, you've talked about going over to the States. Tell us about your travels over there. That was due to your education and your studies.
Yeah, for me, it's that came about because when my mum died at 16, I thought to myself, okay, I need to keep studying because that's what she would want me to do. She would want me to study to the highest level that I can. And obviously, you go through college, you get your honours, you get your masters, and then maybe do your PhD. So then for me, I thought, okay, you know what, Smart, try and study to the highest level that you can. And then when the chance came to go to America, I thought, okay, you know what, Smart, you can study and of course you can play football. So I applied for a scholarship, ended up getting the scholarship. When I got to America, everything was explained. You would have classes at night, and the days that you've not got classes, you'd be training during the day and so on. So I thought, okay, that's pretty much full time, and thinking that's what you've always wanted. And my coach at the time, Rudy Brownell, when he recruited me, he told me I was coming to play as a striker. But when I got there, he said to me, you're going to play as a left back. And for me, I absolutely hated the first 3 to 6 months. I didn't know what I was doing. I just kept on bombing forward, costing the team goals and stuff like that. And I didn't really enjoy it. But then over time, I just said, he pulled me into his office and he just said to me, listen, if you don't want to play here, you can go back to Scotland. And for me, my mentality was, if I go back to Scotland without completing my degree, then you failed, and that's not what I wanted to do. So I took my time, started learning the position, started watching people in that position, and then slowly started becoming a really good left back. And I think mentally, in America, they push you mentally, and I think that experience probably taught me more than I could ever imagine.
And what were you studying?
I was studying management and international business.
You said that you were watching other left backs. Are you talking YouTube videos? How did you manage to educate yourself on how to play left back? Just
YouTube videos, really. Like YouTube videos time and again. And even down to when I'm playing FIFA, just playing as the left back to see, okay, you know what, this is what you need to do. And again, like, it sounds false, but I was watching Leighton Baines quite a lot, just how he crosses the ball in, his body shape, his arm movement. And then I would watch David Beckham just to see how he used to cross the ball in, because at the time my crosses was absolutely horrible. And then I started watching David Alaba, because when I was in America, there sometimes I would play defensive mid, sometimes I would play centre back. And then I started watching David Alaba because when he played for Bayern, he would play left wing sometimes, he would play defensive mid sometimes, and I just said, okay, you know what, Smart, just try and be like him as best as you can. And over time, I actually done really well as a left back. When you talk about coming back to the game, back into the senior game, we spoke earlier and you were saying that it was quite late on for you. What age were you when you finally got back to playing senior football in Scotland? When I got back at the age of, I left when I was 21 to go to America. I got back at 24. So I signed with Annan July 2015. July 2015, just for the season starting in August. Did you just turn up with a pair of Bermuda shorts on and ask for a game? I don't think Joyce could have probably allowed me. But no, basically, Graham Diamond, when I came back from America, Graham Diamond phoned me and just asked me what I was doing football-wise. And at the time, when I came back from America, I was ready to quit playing football, because I thought, okay, you know what? You didn't get drafted in the MLS, so you're obviously not, just call it a day. And then he phoned me, he was like, listen, Smart, do you want to go play for Annan? And the truth is that I didn't know where Annan was. And then he made a joke, he was like, well, Smart, Annan is next to England and you've got that English connection, so you'll probably fit in quite well. So then after that, I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. And he explained to me that obviously if you're the boys from Glasgow, go up to Annan and I won't need to worry about transportation and stuff like that. So went to Annan, I spoke to Jim Chapman, and I just said to him, he asked me, what position do you play? I was like, oh yeah, I play left wing and left wing back. It was like, all right, okay. And then that was it, really. When you look at that situation, Jim, there's a young man coming back from America, but it's a link that he's maybe established whilst at the Jimmy Johnstone Academy that's got him back into the game. How satisfying is that for you?
Well, it's very satisfying, but because if you talk at the link with Graham Graham Diamond with Smart, the link as well with John Joyce. John took actually 5 players from here to Annan. I'm sure that, am I right, John, that year?
5 grown, 7 I think.
Was it?
7, something like that. Some of the boys went doing in the journey of Smart series. It's not the easiest journey to make every second night and then a Saturday.
No.
So they kind of succumbed to that.
That was very satisfying, that not just the one previous, but the 5 or 6, whatever it was at that time, but to see them all go down together was absolutely fantastic. And Joyce there couldn't have promoted anybody more than from the Jimmy Johnstone Academy. He seen in these players, one being maybe Rabin, a friend of Smart's. Joyce was in the forefront of that, but it was magnificent as well that Graham also recommended Smart, and with Graham being part of the senior team set up as well was obviously very influential with the senior team. So that's great. You've got Joyce, you've got Graham promoting players, and Joyce continuously working with the players was absolutely fantastic. And the guys that actually went down there at that particular time, you had a couple of their uncles in earlier on, Jamie Gillen, Jamie Johnston, Rabin, Gary Black, and Jordan Brown. And you also had Jordan Moffat there at the time as well. So great feeling, and big Kyle Crystal.
From that group of players, what was your thoughts on Smart's chances coming in quite late, maybe 24 years of age?
In that division, to be fair, if you've got pace, you'll hurt people. Smart's got that in abundance. And with the energy and just his attitude about wanting to do something. I mean, he's come back from America thinking, I'm maybe not going to do it, and he's come back here and he's realised, when I'm playing against guys and I'm scoring goals. And that then gave him another boost. And he was playing against experienced players. It wasn't as if he was just turning up and playing against boys that had just come through for lone players. He was playing against real experienced players who'd played Premier League division football. And he was scoring at that point, I think, a goal a game. I mean, I know Community South didn't want to play against him. Big Andy Dowie, who's a big lad, didn't not keys for me. I went off.
Didn't he fancy it?
He didn't. And I'll be fair, I was talking to their manager after it, and he said to the boys just hated playing against him because he was a handful. He was all other man. He scored 2 that day, if I remember rightly.
Smart, you had the best goal scoring record in Scotland, out with Lee Griffiths. You must have been thinking, this is easy, this game.
To be fair, I think looking back now, I think the start I had was great, and I think I'm not one to get big headed, but it did kind of make me feel as if, is this what I've been working hard for? Like, I get here and I've scored 5-6 goals in the last 4 games. I'm thinking it can't be that hard, and I think maybe that thinking for a split second, once that starts creeping in, it's big trouble, because then life hits you really quickly.
Well, Joyce mentioned there, clubs didn't like playing against you, but with that kind of goal scoring rate, you're going to come to the attention of other teams, so the offers started coming in, and you eventually went to Stranraer. Can you talk us through that move?
Yeah, I think Stranraer came about just randomly, really, and I think looking back now, if I'd been a bit more patient, maybe something else could have happened, because the interesting thing is, months and months later, while I was working for Enterprise, and again, true story, a guy saw my name and was like, "Oh, are you Smart?" I was like, yeah. I was like, "Oh, I'm a scout from Hibs," and I'm like, "What?" And then it was like, "The only reason I know about you because I actually came to watch a couple of the games when you played for Annan, and I put you on as a recommendation to get signed, but they didn't take it on board." And then I was thinking to myself just how thin line football can be, and went to Stranraer, and then within 2 or 3 months, I found myself without a club after I left Stranraer, because they signed me in May. They hadn't really seen me play, but they saw the numbers and thought, okay, we'll bring this guy in. And then before the season even started, they decided it wasn't going to work out. The manager said to me, "You're not going to play for me. You'll be in the stand." And again, for me, because I knew I was already behind in the game, I just needed game time. I decided it was time to leave. But again, before I left to go to Stranraer, I spoke to the manager at Annan at the time, which was Jim Chapman, and I was hoping when I spoke to him, he would just tell me he wants me to stay or he wants to keep me. But the message I got was kind of like, well, if you go, you go. If you stay, you stay. So I didn't really feel as if he wanted me to stay. I'm probably sure he did, but I didn't really feel as if he wanted me to stay. So because of that, I just thought, okay, well, Stranraer playing in League One is the right direction you want to go. Not realising that from my part, there was probably a lot of development that was still needed.
This is another interesting thing that a lot of listeners might not appreciate. Moving from League 2 to League 1, you doubled your weekly wage. Tell us how much you were on when you went to Stranraer.
So I doubled my weekly wage. So at Annan at the time, I was on £50 a week. And then obviously when I got the phone call to Stranraer, and I was told that I would get my wages doubled again. As a young-ish person in the game, if someone tells you they're going to double your wage, you might think you're earning a lot of money and you're excited. So I just thought, yeah, that's fine. So I went to Stranraer, £100 a week, thinking that's me. I've completely made it.
But then money is not your big motivator, is it?
Nah, it's never been. And I think for me, how my mum brought me up is a testament to her. And I think she's always taught me it's better to give than to receive, and I think that's stuck with me the whole way through. So money's never really been my big motivator for anything that I do. Yes, I want nice things in life and I want to do well and whatnot, but I think for me the mindset is always smart. If you get anything, be quick to give it away, because the things that you get, it's not coming from, it's just coming from the grace of God that you're getting these things. So for me, money was never really, I could have played for free. It wouldn't really have bothered me at all.
Didn't say that on the podcast for your next contract.
But his mum sounds like a lovely lady. What was your mum's name?
Patience.
Thank you. Excellent.
When you're talking about your Stranraer experience, it may not have been a great experience for you, but there was a situation one day where you're sitting on the bench at Ibrox, and there was a realisation when you were sitting there that perhaps you could have mingled with that kind of level.
Yeah, like I remember the game specifically because it was when we played against Rangers in the Betfred Cup, and at the time we're losing. Obviously, when you're on the bench, you go warm up a couple of times, and I was warming up about 50,000 people, and I think it kind of slowly started to sink in, because for me, growing up, all I wanted to do was play professional football, and I think I wish growing up my dream was to play in front of 50,000 people, because I firmly believe if it was, it would have happened. It can still happen, I don't know, but I think at the time I was thinking, actually, Smart, you're playing in front of 50,000 people, and I was warming up and I was looking at the game and I was looking at the strikers who was playing for Stranraer, and every time we got it was losing the ball, and I just looked at it and I thought to myself, Smart, to be fair, we've lost the game 3-0, but I don't think you could have done any worse than what was before you, because again, at the time you was energetic, you was fast, you was strong, you didn't stop running. If you got the ball at the halfway line, you can kick it, you can run, you can dribble. So I was looking at the game just thinking, Smart, you know what, you feel far off, but you're not as far off as you think. You just maybe need that break.
There was an interest when it's a big game, and obviously the club will be asking the players how many tickets they would need for friends and family. A couple of tickets.
To be fair, when the clubs was asking, obviously being from Glasgow, I've got good friends from Glasgow, family from Glasgow, and then everyone was asking at the time. Everyone was asking, "Oh, I'll take 5 tickets. I'll take 2. I'll take 10." And then I went to the club. I was like, "Oh, is it okay if I get 30 tickets?" and then
brilliant.
And then everyone looked at me. Some of the boys looked at me as if I've gone completely crazy, and I was just like, "Yeah, I'll get 30 tickets." And then the chairman said to me, "Listen, well, if you don't sell them, bring them back." But I was like, "Listen, there's no need to bring them back. Just give me at least 30 tickets." And at the time, I actually ended up selling all the tickets to like just friends and family that wanted to come to the game, and I've had like family come over from England to try and come support. And after the game, a lot of them said the exact same thing. Said, "Listen, Smart, team lost 3-0, the striker, okay, but I don't think you would have done worse."
This is a wee turning point in your career, because you take a wee step back. It's not working out at Stranraer. East Kilbride are on the phone.
Yeah, and I think East Kilbride was on the phone to me. How it happened was quite strange, and when I look back to it to this day, again, maybe it's just me going by my gut feeling and being a bit sceptical here. I felt as if, when I look back and analyse everything, I felt as if somehow, some way, Stranraer got East Kilbride to be on the phone to me to put a bit of pressure for me to leave from that side, with Stranraer applying the pressure from their side, because I ended up leaving thinking, okay, I can go to East Kilbride and play week in, week out, because that's what was important to me, just to try and get that development. And then after played 2 or 3 games, scored a couple of goals for East Kilbride, then the manager turns around to me and says, we've got too many strikers, we need to let you go. And I was absolutely devastated, because for me, I've gone from having a great season with Annan, signing for Stranraer, going to East Kilbride, and now getting released by East Kilbride. So I remember specifically sitting down watching the first game of the season was Rangers versus Hamilton, and I was just actually crying, just thinking to myself, wow, like, you've worked so hard to get to where you've got to, even though for some people they might see it as it's nothing, but for me, from where I've came from, it's a lot. So just thinking, wow, and then I was literally just crying, and then thinking to myself, I completely hate football and didn't really think about football at that time because I didn't have a club.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it must be difficult at that stage to thereafter then get back into the game. How did you manage to turn your mindset around to get back into football?
I think for me, the interesting thing was I didn't want to play football with anyone I didn't know, because I just felt I couldn't trust anyone. And what I started doing was I started playing Sunday League. And I started playing in a Sunday League and just playing week in, week out. And of course, when you play Sunday League, sometimes it's a bit false, but sometimes you get 1 or 2 good players within the leagues that's maybe played in the past. And I'll usually get some players that's maybe played in the past would ask me, what team you playing for? What you doing with yourself? This is this. And they would ask me, what's your phone number? I'll pass it on to this. I'll pass it on to that. And then through that, I started getting phone calls from junior teams. I think at the time I received over 10 to 15 phone calls from just random junior teams across Scotland. But after the whole experience with Irving Vicks and St Anne's, I said to myself, I didn't want to play junior football. It was either I played amateur football, Sunday League, or professional, or I don't play junior football. And I started getting a few phone calls, and they all sounded exactly the same. Sounded as if they was reading from the same script. To be honest, come play for us, good bunch of boys. Come play for us, good bunch of boys. You would enjoy your football. But a manager at Rossville at the time, Brian McGinty, he phoned me and just said to me, would like you to come help us out if you can. We know you don't have to come, but come help us out, try and enjoy your football again. And then after that, I signed for Rossville till January with the agreement of, if a team does come back in for me, I can move on.
And did that team come in? Yeah,
that team did come in, and I spoke to Joycey at the time, and I spoke to Jim Chapman, asking if I can come back to Annan. And when I spoke to Joycey said to me, "Smart, you should have called me a lot earlier, because of course would have taken you back." Because for me, I didn't feel as if they would want me back. I didn't feel as if they would take me back. But I think after I just realised that, listen, Smart, you just don't really still understand how football is. And I think I spoke to Joycey, and I was almost in tears when they says they'll take me back, because I was just delighted and completely humbled, and ended up going back to Annan in January.
So Joycey, when you're looking at a situation where a player might be at a crossroads in their career and they're maybe thinking that they're lost to the game, how can you then build them back up at that stage?
Just let them play. That was the biggest thing for us. I think we speak about decisions in football, and some kids and some people make the wrong decision at the time. They think, maybe if I go to that next division, then it might be to suit me. Sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it was just to go and enjoy yourself, and go and let the 300 people at Annan love you again. And the people at Annan did love him, so we always knew it was a no-win situation for us, because they would accept him back right away. And he came back, and again he worked wonders for us. Did we get to playoffs?
Yeah,
I thought so. So he was great, but again I've got to say that he blends into the dressing room tremendously. I mean, you've got different characters down there. You get really experienced boys, you get some young boys, and then Smart comes in smiling with his chicken and rice, trying to feed the dressing room, and it's just a good thing. It's a great atmosphere down at Annan. Annan's a lovely club, lovely people, lovely place.
But again, if you start doing well, other clubs are interested. But with regards to your next move, you ended up going to Clyde. That was your next move. How did that materialise?
The Clyde one was quite interesting because I went to the exit trial at the time, and the exit trial was actually, the game was played at Broadwood, and the training had a week of training prior to it, and I think that was the day Annan, so Clyde was starting their training. And after the season, when I went back to Annan, Jim Chapman obviously just said to me, listen, Smart, we've not got the budget for it, blah blah blah, and so on. Understandable, respectable. I says, okay, that's fine. So at the point, I didn't have a club, went to the exit trial, and then he got announced as the Clyde manager. And for whatever reason, I don't know, I just felt something telling me, Smart, you're going to play for Clyde. Smart, you're going to play for Clyde. Before you went to Stranraer, Barry Ferguson had tried to sign you to come to Clyde. You didn't. And now Jim Chapman is at Clyde. There was just a feeling, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. So before the game, I saw Jim Chapman, and he looked at me, and there was a sense of, he knew that I wasn't going to let a few setbacks stop me from playing. And I think he could kind of see that hunger and desire. And I think that's what he wanted to bring to Clyde. And he said to me, listen, Smart, would you be up for coming to Clyde? And at the time I was like, listen, I just want to play. And of course, the famous speech, we've not got no money, but if you want to come, you can come play. And then I thought, actually, you know what, to be fair, again, I'll be more than happy to come play. And then ended up signing for Clyde. So
whilst at Clyde, you were playing up front with David Goodwillie, a guy who had scored for Scotland against Spain, who was then the world champions. What kind of experience was that? Was he one of the best players you've played alongside?
Yeah, by far. And I think playing with him was exciting because I like to challenge myself. I like to try and push myself as much as I can. But again, I like to learn as much as I can. And at the time, the team wasn't doing well specifically because we were conceding a lot of goals. But on a personal level, I started the season well. Me and David Goodwillie was playing up front. And to be fair, I would like to think we were a complete handful because he had the intelligence, the technical ability, strength. I had the pace, the tenacity. So we're doing really, really, really well. And I was just trying to learn as much as I can from him. And I think a few games into the season, at one point, I had more goals than he did. And I was looking at it thinking, wow, Smart, this guy has played for Scotland, has played in the Premier League. And then I think it just kept on reminding myself that actually football is thin margins. You're not as far off as you think. Just keep learning.
As we've already discovered by you talking us through your career, a managerial change can throw everything awry for a player, and that's exactly what happened. Daniel Annan comes in. Did he not fancy you as a player?
I'll probably say it didn't. My style of play probably didn't suit him, but the only thing that I didn't understand was there was another boy at the time, I can't remember his name, it was similar to myself. It was a younger boy, left-footed, quite tall, and he was coming through the 20s, and he would always play him. But then I looked at myself and I looked at him and I thought, hold on, like I'm literally almost an experienced version of him. No offense to the boy, but 10 times the player he is. And I worked harder as well. So I just couldn't really get into the team. He played me once or twice. And then after that, I just could not get into the team. And it wasn't down to work rate because all the boys loved me in the team. David Goodwillie would always be the first person to say, Smart, I wish you was playing, because we had an understanding where I didn't mind running as much as I can just to get him the ball, because by the time he gets the ball, then I know I'll get it back. So once Jim Chapman and John Dykes left Clyde, Daniel Annan came in and I just couldn't get back in. And then, of course, he signed a couple of players, and he signed Ali Love, who at the time I would think we're somewhat similar. He's maybe a bit more experienced than me in the game, but we're somewhat similar. We're left-footed. We can play off the right. We can play off the left. We can play behind the strikers. And then he was playing and I wasn't. You mentioned Ali Love comes in, and there was a much publicised incident involving one of your ex-teammates, Rabin Omar. And obviously Ali Love was reprimanded at the SFA for a racist incident. How difficult was that when one of your teammates have been pulled up for an incident on the football park? For me, that was tough because, like Tracy says, I'm one of the boys where, for me, I don't care who you are. If you're fat, skinny, whatever, like if I feel good energy from you, you would get it right back. So for me, I get along with all the boys in the dressing room. So it was difficult because when that happened, and I remember specifically, Daniel Annan came out and said, if found guilty, he won't play for this club again. And I thought, okay, that's quite good. That's the kind of thing you would want a manager to say, just to put the foot down. But then when it happened, I spoke to Rabin, and I've played with Rabin for a year and a half, 2 years, and me and Rabin became really good friends. And I spoke to Rabin, and Rabin is not the kind of guy that would lie about something like that. And I said to Rabin, truth be told, what happened? And Rabin explained it to me, and I said, wow. So when I got back to training with Clyde and stuff, it felt awkward because I didn't know how to act. It's something that I've never experienced before in a footballing environment. So I didn't know how to act around him, around some of the other boys. So I just ended up putting myself in a corner, come in, don't say anything to anyone, only speak unless I'm spoken to, because again, I don't want to, because at the time, the form we were in was really good. So I didn't want to be the person that caused uproar in the dressing room, because I spoke to the PFA, and then the PFA says, "Smart, whatever you want to do, you're within your rights to do that." But out of respect for the boys, I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't want to do anything. I just said, you know what, Smart, just take it as it comes. But then the interesting thing was, Dan Lennon had said if found guilty, he wouldn't play for the club again, which I found quite supportive. But then I think at the time, the way they announced it, he wasn't found guilty, but he was. So then it was kind of like justified and so on. It was just confusing, to be honest, because it wasn't, he got a 5-match ban, but I think it wasn't for using a racial slur. It was for violent. I have no idea. It was just confusing. I was like, all right, okay. And then that was that, really.
So he stayed at the club?
Stayed at the club and kept on playing. And obviously, some people might not understand, but it leaves me in a difficult situation, because for me, I don't know if I should like you. You've not done anything to me personally. I don't know if I should like you. I don't know if I shouldn't like you. I don't know what you're capable of. I don't know the full ins and outs of you as a person. So I think for me, the best thing to do at the time was just to kind of go into a shell and just try and make sure that I don't cause a scene or offend anyone.
I read an interesting article. There was an interview given following the killing of George Floyd over in the States, and obviously you've got friends over there during your studies. You made friends over in the States. What kind of message would you give to any of our listeners in relation to the current climate that we're in? For me, it's again, it goes back to my mum as well, because growing up, she would always say to me, "Smart, treat people the way you want to be treated." And I think that's, for me, that's the underlining message. It doesn't matter what age, who they are, whatnot. Just treat people the way you want to be treated. And if everyone does that, and I think if everyone does that in the world, then the world would be a better place, and things like this won't be happening. I wouldn't turn around to someone and say, "Oh, you're fat," strictly because I wouldn't like I'm glad.
strictly because if someone called me fat, I wouldn't like it. So on the basis of that, do unto others what you like done unto you, treat others how you like to be treated. And it's just, that's the principles that I live on, and that's the principle anyone who knows me would say. If they've got a bad word to say about me, fair enough. But most people in my circle or around me, or if you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect. If you treat me with disrespect, then I'll treat you with respect, because I want still to be treated with respect. So it's not a case of you called me fat, I'm going to call you fat as well, because that just becomes an eye for an eye, but an eye for an eye, and everyone goes blind. So where possible, just understand that it's not difficult. It's not difficult. Just treat people the way you want to be treated.
We've spent a few hours with you today. Jim Simonetti knows you really well, having dealt with you at the Jimmy Johnstone Academy. All I can say is that you brought nothing but positive energy into the Academy today. But all that's left for us to say, Jim Simonetti and I, to John Joyce and to yourself, Smart, is thank you for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Not a problem at all. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure.